so new. When we started out, like the QC process at Central Park Media was still pretty exhaustive, but there was so much we didn't know about DVD and about production and all these things, and we kind of had to learn the hard way. Did anybody get Slayers when it first came out? Yeah?
Yay!
Do you guys have the special collector's edition out of phase Slayers?
Yes.
Right. So, like, honestly, we were working with one of the top offering houses in the city, okay? This offering house did big Hollywood movies. I mean, they were like the first real offering house. So it wasn't like some little mom and pop operation. They never tested for this kind of thing. They never QC'd anything in mono. They never QC'd anything in surround. Because if it's not a surround title, well, why should I bother? But some people, have, you put your stereo mix into your surround thing, and it sort of gives you that fake surround. And nobody ever tested these things. So when the Slayers thing had come out, that wasn't part of the QC. It was just QC'd in stereo. Nobody even thought to look for that. So then that came out, and it turned into this big thing. And we learned. It was a learning experience, And then later on, like another kind of problem would come up that nobody had anticipated because nobody in the industry had run into that problem before, but we did. And we put that into the QC. And let me tell you, the Central Park Media QC got very exhaustive after a while and ended up spreading itself to all these other companies. There are other DVD offering companies that took our QC Bible and would start to use them. And over at Duart, which is where I direct Pokemon, and Tim Warenko, who's the producer of Pokemon, who had worked at Central Park Media for a long time, he's over there, and he has taken these QC guidelines and brought them over there. I mean, the authoring houses that we would work with couldn't believe the level of complexity that we were putting into these things, to make sure that every possible thing could be checked. And that's something that has sort of spread itself throughout the industry. As I was saying, a lot of us have moved on and sort of taken what we've learned here to other places. I've stayed working on anime and animation because I direct Pokemon now. I've directed 4 kids for years. I became a voice actor, and I'm doing a lot of that. Steven has been in publishing. Frank is kicking ass with Media Blasters, with manga. Yeah. Anything you want to pimp?
Not really. I mean, I've got 100 books under my belt at this point, just from Media Blasters, and we're still going, so that's good.
Yeah, and Justin, back around to Anime News Network again.
It's a vicious circle.
It is.
At some point, I'll have to start Central Park Media again, so I can work there again.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And there's things like
I miss the U.S. Manga Club.
In the back of the room there, Peter's Tara.
Peter, that's right. Yeah, oh yeah. And we've got people up front, people who are interns and things who've ended up going on to do things. One of our interns is now kind of like a top level animator with Edgeworks and Curious Pictures and things like that. The Be Beautiful division, that was a Yaoi division that popped up sort of late in the company's history. I have the honor of having directed the only real Yaoi done in English, which was Kazuna, which I actually had to sell myself to the Japanese creator because she's like, well, only a woman can work on this. And I'm like, I beg to differ. I'm sorry, the sensibility is still, is still there. And the fact is, because a lot of that stuff is looked at in Japan, was looked at, well, it's for women. They're not gay. And I'm like, yeah, they're gay. It can still be for women, or it can be for men. Let's not exclude this audience. You have these 2 men who have a romantic physical relationship. Let's say like these 2 men right here. That was Justin dressed up as Vic Mignogna. And that was before Vic was even Vic, so I think Vic got his look from this.
Would you like to lead the Sunday prayer?
Yeah. So anyway, there you go. And actually, the guy that Justin's with right there, Cam Lee, is now one of the, the top editors, designers at Viz with all their publications. So again, we've sort of spread throughout the industry. There are people who've gone to Marvel, and I think one of the most significant people in bringing manga and American comics together.
C.B. Spolsky, who was the guy who recommended me to start working on the CPM manga.
Yeah, and CB is still working at Marvel, and and Becky Cloonan, who's an Eisner Award nominee this year, who's a comic artist, and she's done some spectacular stuff for DC and other labels. But something I was just wondering, what I'm saying, the one thing I just wanted to sum up, the way I felt about this, I loved working for this company, and I loved working for John. He was an uncompromising guy, almost to a fault, but there was something to be learned from that, that I tried to take with me wherever I've gone. I think a lot of us who stayed in this business have tried to take with us. Now, as for what he's doing now, does anybody know what John O'Donnell is doing now? Wind power, windmills. This guy who comes across as the most righty Republican guy there is. He's really libertarian, sort of small government, but this guy is working on wind power, windmills for your house and things like that. And is he the CEO? COO? I don't know, chief operating or executive. But that's what he does now. And here's a guy, this guy could have retired 20 years ago, He works because he likes what he does, and he, so now he runs this company, and it's a completely different thing. Like when you guys had sent that picture around me, I couldn't believe that that's what he was doing. But that's the kind of guy he is. And it's funny, Stephanie Shalowski, who's the VP of production, who was really his right hand through all these years, she runs now, did anybody know? Anybody seen that? It's called the Organizing Zone. That she's a professional organizer, and I honestly cannot think of a better job for her. Because that's another thing, the way the schedules were broken down, these detailed, super detailed Excel files, and that's something that's also made its way into other aspects of production, things that I've worked on, things that Tim and I work on over at DuArt. But she runs the Organizing Zone now, and she's another person who clearly doesn't need to work, could retire, but she wants to do it because she just wants to keep busy, and she just, she likes the challenge of things like that, because that's what her job was at CPM all the time. She's presented with a giant mess and had to clean it up. There's nobody better.
Does she still have the option with her new company to reduce grown men to tears?
I'll bet you she does. Why, did she ever do that to you?
Not me, but I saw a few.
Yeah, she was tough as nails. And I like the show Malcolm in the Middle. I could never watch that show because she looks so much like Jane Kasmerick. Every time, Malcolm's mom would just start ripping into him, I would just be like, ah! I would hear Stephanie yelling at somebody. Not at me because I reminded her of one of her friends in college. So that was my get out of jail free card. But did any of you guys have any questions about anything Central Park Media related, or any stories or anything like that?
I do. I've done publishing. I had the pleasure of working with Moxie, and I just want to say, let's give her a lot of credit, because John is primarily forefront, but she definitely held it back. And I remember going to her office, but Be Beautiful, she was dedicated. She loved her stuff. And it was her baby.
Yeah, it was.
Be Beautiful, got into that whole message world. I was heartbroken because this was her baby. We owe a debt of gratitude to Masumi for bringing more of the hardcore titles to America. She dared to do it.
Yeah, Masumi was really cool. She was a great woman, very just brilliant and dedicated. Anybody else? Center Park Media stuff? Yeah.
Did Mike Hackney and Jim Malone work there at one point?
Mike Hackney and Jim Malone worked for Taj. Taj Productions was a recording studio in the city, and they worked there. Mike was, I guess, a producer, and I think he may have had a piece of the company, and Jim was an engineer. And so some of the early dubs that we did were sent to Taj, early Slayers, Utin, and things like that, and Mike and Jim worked on those before they ended up going to 4Kids. Awesome.
Well, my boss and CFO used to work at Central Park Media.
John Cirabella.
Yeah, John Cirabella and Andy Vidal, they both used to work at Central Park Media, and then they went off and started their own company. But actually, it's a little bit more complicated than that.
A little?
A little?
Yeah, well, they were originally software sculptors, which got bought out by Central Park Media until John Cirabella couldn't deal with working with John O'Donnell anymore, and so he went off and formed Media Blasters.
Well, see, here's the thing about